Hello and welcome to Top of Mind with Ann and Rachel. My name is Rachel Profitt and my pronouns are she, her. I'm a principal program manager here at Microsoft and I'm a white woman with long red hair that's down today. I'm wearing my rose-colored glasses and a sweater with blue and gray and white stripes. And I'm in my office for the first time since my surgery with my epic sticker wall behind me, which is super exciting. So Ann, do you want to introduce yourself?
Absolutely. My name is Ann Krupke. My pronouns are she, her. I am a white woman with brown hair that's up today. I'm wearing a green sweatshirt, the green sweatshirt, if you're a fan of the show, and some over-the-ear headphones that you can only kind of see because I have a virtual background on today. I'm a senior product marketing manager at Microsoft. I lead product marketing for Dynamics 365 supply chain management and commerce.
Awesome. So, Ann, what's going on? What's top of mind? Did you have anything that you were like super excited or pumped to talk about today?
I do. Did you happen to catch our announcement last Thursday?
Which one? I mean, there's been a lot.
That's true. We are doing a lot at Microsoft, but
I'm like, like
on
what? You're
Thursday
obviously
last
excited about
week,
one of them, but
we announced
one.
Microsoft Copilot for Finance.
Yes, I kind of assumed that was the one, but
Yes, it is. It's so cool. Like I think so for anybody who didn't catch the announcement first, maybe Rachel, while I give a summary, you can find a link and throw it in the comments. But
yeah,
so Microsoft Copilot for Finance is, if you're familiar with Copilot for Sales and Copilot for Service, it's kind of in that vein. But essentially, the premise is as we have developed more Copilot capabilities for business functions, the initial way we lit them up was through Dynamics 365 Finance. But when you look at who uses Dynamics 365 Finance, that's only a subset of people. And the product team was looking at how can we bring Copilot innovation for business functions to people beyond our ERP users or in addition to our ERP users. And thus, Copilot for Finance was born. Essentially, it is bringing finance specific Copilot skills to Office 365 apps. So, one example would be credit and collections, right? Being able to do collections email creation using natural language or Copilot generation, and then attaching all the relevant information, regardless of what your ERP is. Or in Excel, there is a capability for reconciliation. So when you're doing your reconciliation process, it can help you go through the massive amounts of data and say, here's where you actually need to be paying attention because there's a mismatch that you need to navigate. And here's some general insights. So I personally think it is just like really exciting.
changing for the world of finance. If you're like, if you're a collections person or like a finance, GL type person that has to do reconciliations as a part of your job, like game changing.
Yeah, I mean, so it's super exciting. Um, if you're interested, definitely check out the link that Rachel's put on the banner.
There's
Um,
a button right at the top to join the preview. So you can join that preview and get access to it like right away. And there's documentation that kind of helps you get started. I think they've got like sample prompts and things like that that you can use with it to make it super easy. I'm super impressed though with like the walk up and ready to use-ness, if that's a word, usefulness. I don't know.
yeah,
Like
usability.
the co-pilots all together. I actually, funny story, like I have a local brewery here in town that I frequent a couple times a week and I do their website, so like because I work for Microsoft, I clearly know everything about all technologies, but
Yeah, of course, that's
clearly I'm more
required.
skilled than the brewers at that sort of thing. So I manage their website, but one of the owners, he's an older gentleman, and he was like, Rachel, he's like, I really need your help making like a cleaning checklist for our staff, like for opening and closing and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, okay, cool. I was like, you could just ask like Copilot to do this for you and it would just spit it out. And he's like, what? Do what? And I was like, I had him get his phone out and I took him to like Bing chat, right? And the Copilot. And I was like, just type in there, can you help me create a cleaning checklist? And he was just like, whew. And he's like, this is so easy. And I was like, yeah, you can ask it anything. And I was like, and if you're in a good mood, you can ask it to do funny things, like create it in the voice of Chuck Norris or in the style of a pirate, and it will just rewrite the whole thing in like 10 seconds for you in the style of a pirate or Chuck Norris, which he was like, this is cool. So I think there's so many applications for it. And like the fact that this guy could figure it out,
Yeah.
like, says like so much for these co-pilots in general. Obviously, like some of these co-pilots, like the finance ones, like you're going to want to be able to ask it financial questions, like
Yeah.
that are relevant to your work. But
Yeah, I think that's where, so I think it's worth kind of recapping. Maybe I see it as there's four key ways that are relevant to you and me, or people kind of in our shoes, that you can use Copilot. So there is Microsoft Copilot in, um actually, I guess, so we have Copilot just in Windows, right? Where,
yeah,
and then you have like similarly Bing Chat Copilot that you can use.
yeah. And then there's like the Microsoft 365 Copilot as well,
Okay,
which is
so
a little
there's
bit.
5 kinds. So one is just like this thing that is open, it's connected to the internet, and you can ask anything, right? You can say, "Write me a poem for Valentine's Day." You can say, "Tell me about, um, you know, supply chain planning, like educate me on a topic," right? Or build or write me something. And that's open, and it's very unstructured is probably the way to put it. And then you have Copilot in Office, which again is
Or
still
Microsoft 365, like
yes,
across the board.
Microsoft 365. Yes. So you can say, write me a Word document, or answer questions about a PowerPoint, or right. So, but it's still unstructured, like no specific purpose necessarily other
The
than the
tasks
skills, right?
are a little bit more tailored to the app. So like if you're in
Yes.
Word, you can ask it to like write content for you and it will stick it into
But
your Word document.
you could write again like a poem or a brief on supply chain, or ask it to explain a math theorem or something, right? It's
Yeah, or
the
another cool thing is
context
like
is
you can
broad.
ask it to like summarize. Like so if you have a
Yes.
Word document open, you could say, "Can you summarize this document for me?" Instead of like
Mhm.
reading the whole thing, it can read it and then summarize it for you.
Right. But again, the context is wide open.
Yeah.
And then you get to what we've done when you look at like those pieces and how they apply to a business function like finance. I think
Mhm.
for you and me, I'm sure we got the same response from a lot of our friends who are in finance roles, which is like, why the heck should I trust Copilot on anything it tells me? Right. And I think when you look at things where the context can be so broad and there is no necessarily structure or restriction on like generally the data sets and the
When it's wide
approach,
open to the internet, right? Like
right?
you're subject
Creative.
to the accuracy of the wide open internet.
Right, and then, like, it's like that toggle you have between creativity and precision.
Yeah.
So that's where first we went and said, "Okay, let's put it in the context of Microsoft Dynamics 365 Finance," which is, structured data, controlled data, and, like,
Secure
relevant
data.
to your business, secure
Like you
data
have to
and
have access to that data.
yes, and
Or to
relevant to your business
yeah.
context. And we brought Copilot capabilities into the product for that. Um, and that's like the beauty of Copilot for finance is we're keeping that same thought process around, like we're structuring it, it's trustworthy, but we're expanding it to more than just our ERP. We're expanding it to any financial system and allowing a lot more people to leverage the benefits of Copilot without necessarily having to do a full ERP implementation, which they could still do because
Yeah.
Dynamics is the best. But
Yeah, and I think the cool thing about it, like to maybe explain some of the like nuts and bolts if you're a little more technical, is like, okay, yes, you can connect to Dynamics 365, but the reason why you can connect to these other things is, and there's kind of like you can just manually import your spreadsheet. So like, if you don't have a proper connection with your Dataverse out to like your SAP or your NetSuite or your whatever, fill in the blank ERP, like we're using the Power Platform behind the scene. It's all built on the Dataverse. So you can basically make those connections. But if you don't have a formal connection in Dataverse and all that, you can just simply take an Excel spreadsheet, import it, and then the context it has is only the spreadsheet that you've given it. So it's not going to go out to the internet and look at all sorts of other data, and you get these boundaries and these borders. And even when we think about co-pilots in general, and I know we've brought Donna on before to talk about responsible AI and kind of like some of those boundaries and how do you trust it, but even with some of the more broad tools like Bing Chat and the Windows Chat, right? Widgets, and even the Microsoft 365 ones that you have in Word and PowerPoint and Excel, they're like, and we have an option. They've enabled us. We can toggle a switch to say full internet search or Microsoft only search. So they've set it up, and this is something that like IT would have to do for your organization. And it's part of like that whole responsible AI when they're setting it up and enabling all your users to do it is, and teaching people like, what's the difference between a full internet
like
search?
I could make a Word document on the Microsoft server that's got a bunch of false information in it but I wouldn't do that. Of course not. But
Right. But
funny.
at least gives you the boundaries of
Limited.
like, it's not going to go out to the whole world. And honestly, every co-pilot can have even more boundaries put on it.
Right.
There
It
are
could be
parameters.
limited to your personal documentation. Like take demand planning, right? I've made content on it. I've written documents. I've created PowerPoints. The product team has done the same. And I could just open up a Word document and ask Copilot to looking at our business documents to write me a summary of demand planning in Dynamics 365. And it's just looking at what we have. It's not going to accidentally pick up like a third-party product or make something up from the internet. Like it's only, I think there's a huge value in just pointing it to internal work resources. The other thing about Copilot for Finance, which I think, so I don't know, as a person who comes from ERP, hearing we built something that doesn't require you to use our ERP feels like maybe now these two things are disconnected, and I don't actually see it that way. I still think that they're very heavily connected. And one of the use cases I think it's important to highlight, like we have customers of Dynamics 365 that take 5+ years to implement. When you're a global organization with hundreds of legal entities and complexity and nuance and business constraints, sometimes it takes a long time. Or maybe you're buying businesses frequently and they have who knows what ERP. Copilot for Finance allows you to have connected insights across your whole ERP landscape as you work towards achieving full ERP. So if you were like me and had a kind of a gut, like not ERP, I still think that it's heavily connected. I think it's part of a stronger story of how we can meet people where they are and help them grow to kind of fully absorbing the Microsoft stack and the benefits of it.
And it's not uncommon that I see people that have multiple ERPs, right? Or they're in their rollout and they've rolled out some legal entities and the other legal entities are still on a different ERP. Or maybe they've fully rolled out what they intend to roll out with Dynamics, manufacturing, whatever. I've got a customer like this where they've rolled it out in their manufacturing org and it's rolled out to all of these divisions, and they have financials and they make financial statements for that division out of Dynamics, but it all gets synced over to their corporate ERP.
Right.
And that corporate ERP isn't really on the table right now to move into Dynamics, but like there has to be that reconciliation between the two systems to make sure that that data is, flowing correctly, and there's mapping and like transformation of that data along the way. And I think a lot of organizations have things like that, and that ability to kind of be able to do that comparison, bring in two sources of data, because you're not limited to one. Right? You could connect it to your Dynamics 365 and your SAP data, pull them in to do that comparison. And that, again, right, is the power. And I know lots and lots of customers that are in a similar kind of shape. on these long-term rollouts. I mean, and it's not limited to like just GL, right? Like when you think about like those comparisons, it could be like your AR, it could be your AP, like it could be, you know, your bank, your like information. And honestly, banking is a great example. Banking in every organization is one of those, there's multiple sources of data. There's the data that your bank has, and there's the data that your financial system has. And every organization, whether you're public or private, is doing some sort of reconciliation between those two, because that is your cash, right? That is your livelihood. So every organization is making sure that those things are reconciled. And it's a great use case. It doesn't matter what banking system you're using, right? Or what ERP system you're using. You can bring two pieces of data together and compare and reconcile.
So I'm sure you can't wait for whatever use case incorporates like detailed analysis of inventory accounting.
Oh, I know. Yeah. Yeah. Like, I think we are on the cusp of so many more, like opening so many more possibilities. I think some of it just comes down to the, like having those data models to be able to support those, and like training our AI large language model to understand those types of questions. But I think, right, you're going to start seeing like more and more of these things come out like really quickly. And obviously like different parts of the business and different business processes have different needs, but I just know it's coming, right? Like even if it's not on our roadmap, it will come. I think, you know, going back to like my business process guidance initiative, I talk about it all the time, but you know, we're having lots of conversations about co-pilots and like how we bring, you know, like some of these generative AI conversations and capabilities at scale to every business process. Like we're still, I think, in this like infancy toddler stage, right, of co-pilots and generative AI. And it's like we have to like each scenario requires like more development and more. But I think we're going to get
it's benefiting all of these scenarios. Like I think the approach that we're taking is not to, like, I don't know, the equivalent of hard coding for a specific scenario. It's building capabilities that support that scenario that apply to, I mean, reconciliation is a great example. You just named like 20 different things you can
I know,
reconcile.
like, and that was just like off the top of my head in like 2 minutes. Like,
exactly.
I'm sure if I sat here and contemplated longer, I could come up with like 20, 30 more.
So the skill is compared to things, and the application is near limitless, right? And I think that that's the important part of the way that we're approaching it. I think you and I have talked about process mining before too, but I think like, I think that
when we figure out how to process mine and process monitor every process, and I had some interesting conversations yesterday with some of the PMs, and I'm looking to have some more with some of our designers who are kind of like looking at like, so our designers, if you're not familiar, designers are the ones who kind of like lay out like what the user interface would look like. And when we think about our user interface today, and like basically every user interface that you've ever seen, it's really just forms over data. And what that means is like we still use structured data, and there's a form to access that data and you fill it in. It might be like, you know, a form where it's just got fields. It might be a grid, but it's just forms over data. And so it's kind of thinking through and brainstorming, like, how do we transform to this next stage of a process-oriented user interface that gives you visibility and the ability to mine that process across, and it's not just forms over data.
So did you know that we've provided process mining capabilities in the warehouse management module?
Yeah. So there's one, and we can find the link for it.
Let me do that.
It's in our docs. So it's one process. It's specific to warehouse management, like transfer.
I've got it.
You found it? You beat me to it?
I'm a fast typer, you know.
But yeah, analyze warehouse material movement through process mining. Yeah, you found it.
I did.
So it's one process. The unfortunate part about this is it required a ton of development, like X++ development, like mapping and all of this, right? It's super cool. Definitely go check it out if you haven't. Like, if you have a warehouse, right, and do anything product centric, and are using advanced warehouse management, because this is specific to advanced warehouse management. If you're not
Right.
using advanced warehouse management, this one doesn't apply to you. It's super cool, but now it's like, how do I take that and make that available across every single process? And
Right.
unfortunately, the plug and play that they had to do from the X++ side isn't super scalable if we had to like multiply that by every process. So where we're at right now is brainstorming and kind of trying to prototype, how do we make something like that be available across the board for
Right.
every single business
Which
process?
I think is huge. I mean, like, so in the warehouse example, what you can see is things like what step in the process, like take outbound picking, for example, what step takes the longest? Or where is time wasted? Or where is rework done? Like you could even say, how many times does somebody pick up a pallet from a location and actually ends up putting it back in the same location? Like how many, right? You can use that data all these different ways. I had a really interesting conversation, like, and it's not just about dynamics, and I think that's your point with business processes is, and especially when you look at like Copilot for finance, how many times is somebody doing a process in the ERP and then exporting it to Excel? Like, what are all of the, and I think you can do some of this with like the Power Automate process
Yeah.
mining capabilities, but like when you look at an actual end-to-end business process, like system agnostic, what are the systems? Where are people spending time? Like, how does that all translate? I think is like, if you can give
How you
people that
actually start to
insight.
make a true, like, digital, I hate the word digital transfer. It's how you actually can start to make a true digital transformation in an
Right.
organization and
Capturing the
know where you should
process,
focus your efforts.
understanding it, and then I think control. So, like, I think you and I have talked about this again. I'm just trying to remember what we've talked about, like you and me, and what we've talked about on the show. But
Yeah.
like, there's something that's going on right now, or has been going on, but I think I look at the Great Resignation, right? The movement in the 2020, 2021, where a lot of people left their jobs and went to new jobs. And I think, again, just in general, the younger generations are less likely to stay in the same job or at the same company. And there's there's this, like, I'm experiencing it being in a new job function, right? I need to learn how to do every process in my job role when I onboard.
Mhm.
And in some cases, there aren't maybe documented processes, or there aren't even people who are familiar or experts at the process, right? You're like, an
Mhm.
easy example is, like when there's the ERP has been around for so long, it's named after the person who did all the customizations on it, right? Like
Yeah.
it's called Steve. Um, so how do you not only mine your existing process, but say this is what the target process looks like beyond a specific system, but above everything. This
Yeah.
is, and not just a Visio diagram though, but
No.
connecting it to system. How do you say this is our ideal process? And this is the executions of it. And this is how we improve process control. And I think like Copilot as the vehicle for process control is like super fascinating. I think
Yeah.
how do you take this combination and help help people, right? Help people do their jobs faster, easier, and
Yeah.
like, and then I also think the big question to answer is what do they do when they don't have to do the kind of the things we can take off their plate? Because that is
Where,
like,
yeah, like, where can they now add value? And if you're
right,
able to mine a process and know where we need to improve a process, right, it gives you the clear answer of what they shift their focus to. How do we fix
right.
that problem?
I do think continuous improvement, like to me, that's the number one thing, right? When you're not worried about reacting, like for example, in procurement, we have Copilot capabilities in supply chain management that say, here's all the delayed purchase orders, here's the impact, and here's some options for like what you can do. Whereas before, you would have had to do that research manually on every step of the way. And
it
that's
gives
super
you,
reactive, right?
yeah,
Like you're
it gets
spending your
you to
whole day.
contacting your supplier as step
Yeah,
one rather than step 27.
exactly. So you're basically me saying, instead of spending your whole day reacting to changes, we get through that quickly. What do you think about next? Do you think about like maybe implementing a procedure for multi-sourcing so that you don't end up in this situation where you're single sourced with a vendor and there's a delay? Like you get to, I think that's the natural first step, is when we're not just reacting to the process anymore all the time, we can improve the process, and then we can evolve the process. Like I think that's the next step after improvement, and I think that's the thing I'm really curious to see how it continues to play out.
How it
Like,
evolves.
and I think
Yeah.
so I think that there's this big opportunity in businesses who couldn't afford to hire the people to do those things will be able to elevate the resources they have. Like, I think about it from a perspective of like continuous improvement is actually a job or a department in a business
In a
that's
lot of
large
work.
enough to
Yeah.
support that, right?
Yep.
But
And
imagine
it's a
that
big
you're like,
part of process governance, right? Like it
yes.
has to be.
So, but
Um,
imagine you're a small business who doesn't have the money to have, 5 continuous improvement engineers running around improving things, but maybe you have a production planner who can essentially be elevated to continuous improvement manager for production, right? Like it's helping you. Oh God, it's actually do more with less, which is one of my least favorite things. I actually
I
hate the
know.
phrase do more with less. I think it's do more with more.
Do
Make
more with more.
more and do
Yeah.
more. Yeah.
So
But
I put up the link down here for my business process tech talks page. We have three more tech talks coming in my series. The next one is all about discovery, right, in a process focus, but the one after that is all about process governance. And so I'm going to be talking, and I'm bringing, her name is Beth Crockett. She is a process architect here at Microsoft. She has nothing to do with Dynamics 365. She works in our finance team underneath like Amy Hood's organization, and is a process architect that helps us internally with our own processes. And
mhm.
we have a whole group of people in our organization that are all around process governance, and they've set up like a process of governance center of excellence, if you will. And so she's going to be coming on to talk about that and like how we do it and how other organizations can implement the same thing. And so if you're not aware of it, like go sign up, get registered, get it added to your calendar. If you can't make the date, don't worry, we record them all, and you'll be able to get to that recording. But the AKA link there takes you to my landing page for all the tech talks. I don't know if they put the dates up there yet, but they should be up there in the next day or two if they're not already.
Awesome.
So
Well, that's amazing.
super exciting.
I'm jazzed.
Yeah.
It's really cool. I think there's so much potential. It's really interesting to see how it will play out. I don't know. Final thoughts, Rachel?
You get a co-pilot. You get a co-pilot. Everybody gets co-pilot. No, no. I think like my final words would just be like, don't be afraid, but like also be responsible.
Yeah.
I also had to tell, my friend, colleague, whatever we want to refer to him as, the older gentleman at my brewery. It's like, Jim, don't type anything like important in here, like your social security number or like your address or like whatever, like, because like that goes out to the interwebs. Like, so I think like if you're just getting started, like the number one thing I would tell you with Copilot is don't type anything in a Copilot prompt that you wouldn't put on Facebook or Twitter or the web in general. Like if you wouldn't type it in there,
Yeah.
like don't type it in the Copilot. Like that's my number one piece of advice. Like
Makes
that's all
sense.
I got. You got anything else?
No, just, I think it's been I'm grateful for the new time.
Yeah. This will be
Um,
yeah, so this will be our new time, I think. Yo dog, I heard you liked Copilot. So here's a Copilot, help you build a Copilot.
I
This is
love
a
it.
thing.
Yes.
Philip, thank you. Love that. So that's all the time we have for today. Thank you, everyone, for joining us on Top of Mind with Ann and Rachel, and we hope to see you next week. Bye, everyone.
Bye.